Oops. Hello, everyone. I'm Jonathan Little. If you can hear me, please let me know. Good. I want to thank all of you for being here with me today. We are at Baha Mar in the Bahamas. Today is an off day for me. Isn't that lucky? What happened to my paper? There we go. Sometimes you're lucky. So today is an off day for me because I made day 2 of the $25,000 tournament. Forgive me if it's a little bit dark in here. I'm trying to... The light situation is not so good. There's a big window right here, but if I open it, you can't see me because it's way too bright. But that's A-okay. Looks like the internet's working, so I think we're good to go. Last night the internet was not working, so I was quite nervous about today, but it seems to be working today. Also, I'm considering doing a video with another poker pro, and you see I have this big blue wall behind me? For those who can't see right there, big blue wall behind me. I'm thinking about doing a video where that's sort of like at the top, and we use that to put some words up there. Like, say we're talking about tilt. We'll put tilt above our heads in the editing. Not sure if that'll work or not, but something we're tinkering with, something I'm considering. Because, we have lots of pros here, and we might as well make use of the setup. Hotel rooms here are sweet, by the way. If you ever go to Baha Mar, they're fantastic. Clint says, Saturday edition. Yeah, we're probably not going to get any viewers today. No one's awake this early on Saturday. I was actually awake at 6 a.m. I purposely did not stay up so late last night because I'm trying to be on a reasonable sleep schedule. But here we are, waking up at 6 a.m. It's exactly what we need in our lives. Whenever I'm playing poker, I always want to sleep as late as I possibly can. Because, well, I say as late as I can, meaning until like 10:45, or if I'm going to do a little coffee till like 8:30, because then, you're maximizing your sleep, and I know that sleep is vitally important to me. So I always try to make a point to get maximum sleep. Hello from Broken Avatar, or Broken Emoticon. Hello from Hong Kong, I bet is what it says. Let's see. How do you feel about the Kroger Pros? I don't know what Kroger Pros are. How do I go back to sleep? Because you never can. I don't really go back to sleep very often. I mean, if I get tired, I'll go back to sleep, but I don't really foresee that happening today. What time did day 1 finish yesterday? 9 p.m. It's a pretty early day. We played 8 hours plus a few breaks. No dinner break, thank goodness. They vetoed the dinner break. Dinner break was a little bit silly. They had a 1 hour partition for a dinner break, and at nice resorts and casinos and whatnot, it's often very difficult to go to a dinner break in 1 hour because the restaurants are nice and fancy. They're a little bit slower. There's not a whole lot of fast food options. So either the dinner break needs to be longer or it needs to not exist. And if you're only going to play 8 hours, I don't think you need a dinner break. So that was great. How do I feel about the pros I work with putting out stuff and they play differently than me? Basically what you're saying is, how do I feel about having other people work with me who play differently than me? You have to understand, everyone plays differently. No one plays exactly the same. And it's important to understand that many different strategies can succeed. Really as simple as that. Daniel says, you enjoyed my commentary on the WPT final table. Well, thanks for that. You can find that at twitch.tv/partypokertv. I commentated the $5,000 Montreal final table a few days ago. It should be nice and fresh. They actually final tabled day 1 of the 25K yesterday, and you probably need to go back and watch that. I'll probably learn a lot. But they never used my final table. They never used my table. They switched tables every 2 hours, and there were only 10 tables, so we were pretty live to get picked, but we did not get picked. I had a really tough table all day yesterday. It was Dominic Nish on my direct left, which sort of forces you to just play good, tight, aggressive. We also had Stefan Sondheimer. We had Elliot Fox. We had Pascal Francois, something like that. I forget his name. Daniel DeVores. We had a lot of very, very good players. Not very many bad players. I was texting with Mike Sexton last night, and he basically said that was the toughest 50 players he's ever seen put together in a room. And it was. Funny enough, though, they're guaranteeing 400 people in the tournament. And they only got 75 yesterday, so that means they need 325 today and tomorrow. The problem they're going to have, though, getting that, is that the structure's too good. They don't skip any blind levels. They went from they started at 2,000, 5,000 with a million chips, so 200 big blinds. Then they went to 3-6. Then they went to 3-7. Then they went to 4-8. Then 5-10. Then 6-12. Then 7-14. Then 8-16. And I think that's when we ended. Maybe, yeah, 8-16 is when we ended. So tomorrow we started 10-20. So that means the starting stack will be 50 big blinds. It's a lot of very, very slow structure. And in a re-entry tournament, well, that's a very, very slow structure. What's the guarantee? 10 million. So they need 400 people. We have Cape Town here. We have Panama City Beach in Florida here, presumably. Panama City Beach is kind of near where I'm from in Pensacola. We have Lexington, Kentucky. Everyone's here from everywhere. No one from the West Coast. It's really early there. So anyway, off days. What do you want to do on your off days? Assuming this is like off days from poker. In general, I think you want to do things that don't cause you to get tilty. Whatever that means. Assuming you're going to play day 2 of a tournament the next day. Now, if you're not doing anything the next day, like you're just going home, where is this light coming from? Coming from here? I have no clue where this light's coming from. Oh, well. It's like when you're in a situation like I am, where you make it through day 1A, you're going to go play day 2, not tomorrow, but the next day. Try to do things to not get tilty, because that may lead you to get annoyed, lead you to be angry, lead you to do silly things, like go out and party or have a drink. And then you end up staying out way too late and having a tough time, right? The next day. You want to make sure that you're ready to go the next day, because on day 2, you often have a lot of equity. Now, in most tournaments, when you make day 2, you're in the money, or nearly in the money, which means your equity is roughly 5, 6, 7 starting stacks worth. So say you're playing a $500 tournament, and you make day 2 with 5 starting stacks, your equity is roughly $2,500. And you don't want to do anything that risks giving away that $2,500. So, don't be silly, right? Even tomorrow, say you made it through with a starting stack, or say you're just going to re-enter. That's $25,000 in equity for me, right? And I don't want to do anything to squander that $25,000 in equity. So, don't screw that up. You're watching me commentating the PCA last year. Was last year? I think it was last year. I touched on making the final table I made back in 2008, and we played outside. What was that like? It was a lot of fun. They actually had to get pieces of tape to hold the cards down. It was very, very windy. Cards were flying everywhere. And I think that was the last year they played outside. I think they realized that was not such a great idea. Cool idea, but not a great idea. Some ideas can be cool and fun and creative, but also probably not so good. San Diego, Detroit, Ireland, Missouri, people from everywhere. Hello, hello. California, one Californian here. Nice. So, what are things you can do on your off day that don't tilt you? Well, today, I'm going to spend some of the day going through the international rules of poker. I ran into Marcel Lusk yesterday at breakfast, and he told me that he's been working on these rules. They finally have them out, and he was wondering what I thought about them. I always make a point to go through the rules. It's very important to know the rules of the game that you're playing. And he's developed 79 rules to govern poker. And I think it's important to understand these rules, and I'm going through and giving my comments, trying to clean up the document a bit, and generally make it good, right? And make it the best I can, because I would love to have a set of rules that everyone plays by, everyone abides to, and I think that's a great thing. So I'm happy to help people who are working towards making poker better and building poker up. Can you glean any information from hands played, fold, preflop, and open raise percentage? Yeah, of course. It's very important, especially when you're playing online. You can have all that information right at your fingertips. Vitally important. Like, imagine you're playing against a guy who plays 80% of hands. Well, you're going to play against him differently than a guy who plays 10% of hands. That came up yesterday, actually, in a spot where someone raised who had not played a pot. I don't know the guy, but he was a young kid, and he raised, but he had not played a pot in like an hour in a 25K. So I was starting to think maybe he satellited in. Someone called, and I just called with jacks in the big blind. I ended up losing this pot. It came 8-5-4. I check, initial razor bet small, I called. Turns another 8. I decided to lead medium. I thought he could float with some hands in that scenario. Whatever. I don't need to justify the play. I led medium, 35% pot. He called, river was an ace. I checked, he bet, and I folded. And that's the spot where I would just pretty much never play the hand that way against most people. I would just be 3-betting at pre-flop, and I would just be check calling to induce bluffs and whatnot, but I thought the guy wouldn't bluff too much. So that's the spot where VPIP, pre-flop raise, general tendencies drastically affected my play. And, maybe it worked out, maybe it didn't. It's tough to know, but I'm willing to bet my money on it. So yeah, off days. Do things that are productive. Do things that build up things. Don't do things that destroy things. Unless, of course, you're in the demolition business. Don't do things to get yourself tilty. Now, imagine you are a grinder, right? You're out here, you're trying to make a living. And your tournament, the day 2 of your tournament, or day 3 or whatever it is not of the utmost importance to you. Now, this will come up when, let's say we are playing the $500 tournament. We make the day 2 at $2,500 in equity. But there's a 5-10 game going, and we know we crushed this 5-10 game for $100 an hour. And I want to make that $1,000 by grinding 10 hours. Well, you probably need to get in there and do it. Typically, as you care more and more about the day 2 event, the more you should strive to make sure you're in a great mindset for it. But the less you care about it, then I don't think it matters quite so much. Because, imagine they told me they had a 200-400 no-limit game running today that was super soft that I could go play. Well, you can be very confident I'd be in there playing. Because that takes priority over playing the 25K, where I have 50K in equity. I mean, if you tell me we have a potential to win $500 an hour or something like that, sign me up, right? But I'm not going to go sit and grind 2-5 today because, first off, I'm in the Bahamas where it's great outside. I don't want to be doing that. And also, if I end up losing like $2,500, I'm going to feel like crap going into day 2, right? So that is a good example of that. So what are productive things you can do? Well, you can work on your business. You can work on bettering yourself. You can go to the gym. I'm going to go to the gym later today. Or, I may not go to the gym. I'm going to go to the beach and go swimming. That seems like a better idea. So I'm going to go to the beach and go swimming. And, that's bettering myself. I'm here helping out all of you. That's hopefully bettering all of you at least a little bit. I'm going to work on the international poker rules for Marcel Luce. That seems like a nice thing to do. I'm going to help him out, right? I mean, these are all things that help and better people. Some people spend their time on YouTube posting hateful comments. Some people spend their time on Twitter posting hateful comments. Don't do stuff like that. Don't tear people down is what it amounts to. Don't tear things down. Because if you're doing that, all you're doing is just being counterproductive and you're not helping anyone at all. You're not even helping yourself. You're just making yourself look like a fool. And you don't want to look like a fool. You're wondering if you can get information, or you're trying to figure out what good preflop raise percentages are. You should definitely just look up whatever game you're playing and see what stats the best players in those games have. If they are playing way tighter or way looser than you, or way more aggressive or way more passive, then it sort of implies that you may not be doing something right. Also, you want to look at things like $1 at showdown percentage, right? That's something you need to get to showdowns to see. You may want to look at continuation bet percentages in general and whatnot. So it's not just pre-flop stats to look at. GTO Davey, good morning. You're often here. Hello. Thanks for being here again. Where do you suggest staying in the Bahamas for a vacation with a little poker? Well, nowhere has poker whenever there are no tournaments here. So you have to come during a tournament. You may ask, why is that? Well, you'll find that most places where locals cannot gamble do not have poker rooms. Locals in the Bahamas are not allowed to gamble legally. So, they don't have poker rooms. But, if you come out here during a tournament, there's the one at Atlantis and the one at Baha Mar. Both places are nice. I prefer Baha Mar. I think it's great. And you definitely need to come during a poker tournament, because then there's lots and lots of poker. You can find something to fit your bankroll, and I think it's great. Will says, you've been cashing in small stakes tournaments thanks to my poker coaching. Good. You got first last weekend for $4,000. Good job. In my opinion, when should you hire a coach anytime or wait till you're making X amount of big blind per hour. No, if anything, you need to hire coaches before you're making any big blinds per hour. Because if you're already winning a lot, sure, coaches will be beneficial. But if you're losing, well, that is when you need a coach. Because they're going to be able to plug the leaks in your game. I mean, very often, I have people who come to me for just like 1 or 2 hours of coaching. And I go through their hand histories for a few hours, and we plug 5 or 10 leaks. And they go from being small losers to small winners, just like overnight. Assuming they listen and do what I tell them to do. Because they have obvious flaws, right? If you have obvious flaws in your game, it's not so hard to just fix those. It really isn't. For example, a lot of people always raise big with their big hands and tiny with their junk hands. They think that's what they're supposed to do, and what inevitably happens is that they just don't get value from their good hands, right? So that's bad. They don't want to do that. Telling them to fix that plugs a big leak. Maybe you see players always check fold the flop unless they have a pair or a draw, right? That's also a big leak. Maybe you have people always raising the river with top pair. Maybe they always call raises on the river with top pair. Whatever. These are all leaks that are very, very easy for a pro to see. And if you have someone plug those holes in your game, it's just like immediately fixable. Also, anytime I'm learning a new game, I hire a coach. Because you spend X amount of money for, let's say, 10 hours of the coach's time. And you are essentially getting their years of knowledge and wisdom condensed down to 10 hours, or however long you spend with them. And they are going to allow you to get way ahead right off the bat. I mean, I've done this with every game I've ever learned. It's just common sense. I do this with Magic the Gathering and Hearthstone and even games that aren't like poker, because it's worth it to me to pay someone who is a pro and who's legitimately good at something some money to get their knowledge. You talk about 3-betting from the small blind. You play tight from the small blind, but see some 3-betting. I mean, it depends on the situation. Sometimes you want to be 3-betting polarized. Sometimes you want to be 3-betting linearly. If they're going to call you a lot, you want to be 3-betting linearly. Typically, you want to make it big. You want to be making it 3.5 to 4 times their raise, because you have to understand when you're 3-betting out of position, your opponents are incentivized to call. Like, let's imagine someone raises to 300 from the button, and you make it 800. Well, they have to put in 500 to win a pot that's going to be 1,700. So essentially, what you're proposing is you think they are not going to realize 30% equity in position. That's just not going to happen, right? I mean, clearly they're going to realize that. So it's a big mistake there to make it 800. Even if you make it 1,000 in that spot, they have to put in 7 to win 21. 33% equity, right? They need 33% equity. They need to realize that much. And they're going to. So you want to make it big. Yesterday I saw people making it 4.5 or 5 times. And it's just good poker, because you want to disincentivize people continuing from out of position. And GTO Davey says he likes using a polarized range, but there are times to be polarized and times to be linear, right? If you know your opponent's going to call you a lot, you don't want to be polarized, because you don't want to have the king 5 offsuit from out of position. Instead, you want to have the king jack suited from out of position, right? If they're going to call you a king 9, you'd way rather have king jack instead of king 5. So it's important to consider your opponent and their overall strategy. Do not think that you just need to 3-bet linearly all the time or polarized all the time. What's my greatest achievement? I don't know. I probably haven't done it yet with any luck. Are we going to get to do-over after image internet meltdown? Are we going to redo image? Maybe. Here, I'll write it down on my paper. Maybe we'll do that tomorrow or the next day. Speaking of which, we may not have a little coffee tomorrow. Because believe it or not, one thing that trumps all of you is sleep. But we'll probably get to it. Hands like king, queen are the toughest for you to decide out of position. I mean, it doesn't really matter what you do with your good hands, to some extent. If you call, it's fine. If you 3-bet, it's fine. What really matters is what you're doing with the bottom of your range, and make sure that there is a bottom of your range and that it's somewhat clearly defined, at least in practice. So anyway, that's 3-betting. But yeah, off days. Better yourself. Make yourself stronger. Make yourself more clear-minded. Make it to where you can focus on the task at hand the next day. And that does not mean playing poker until 4 a.m. It does not mean partying until 4 a.m. So there's nothing wrong with a little bit of a party. You know, if you want to have a little bit of wine, go out to a nice dinner, have fun, but don't be degenerate. Don't do anything that will significantly hinder your play on the next day. This comes up not just with poker, but with anything. Like, say you have a job interview tomorrow, and it's at 9 a.m. Well, you sure better not go out partying all night before, right? Assuming you care about the job interview, right? Now, if you don't care about the job interview, then it just doesn't matter. But if you do care, then you should take it seriously, is what it amounts to. All right, what else do we all want to talk about? What's on my mind? Let's talk about the international poker rules. I'm only through rule number 6 or so. There's a lot of them, 79. May sound like a rule would be one sentence, but no, a rule is more like a paragraph or 5 paragraphs. And so far, I think they're good. I think it is very important that if you go to play any game, that you have at least some understanding of rules. Eddie wants to have a video on controlling expenses. I can do that. We kind of did that yesterday. But yeah, we can do that. Let's see. Keeping expenses low. I'll do normally and while traveling. Good ideas. So most games have a rule book, and it's important that you understand the rules, because if you don't understand the rules, you don't comprehend the rules, you're going to have a difficult time in situations where you simply just don't understand what is happening. Now, 99.9% of the rules will be very clear and obvious if you just play for a little bit, right? Some of them are not so obvious, though. Like, for example, when can you re-raise whenever someone goes all in? Well, it depends on the venue, right? At the moment, it depends on the venue. Sometimes if they make any raise, you can go all in. Any amount over the... So let's say let's say I bet 500 on the river. Someone else makes it all in for 700. And now there's someone in the middle, or someone yet to act. If they call, can I re-raise? Some places you can, some places you can't. It's important for you to understand what the rules are, right? If you don't know the rules there, you will make big mistakes if you're that guy in the middle. Or if that guy in the middle calls, you'll make big mistakes if you're the other player. And how do you know the rules? Well, you read them, right? And poker's rules aren't actually that long. I mean, we have 79 rules, and they are all-encompassing. So it's not actually that big of a deal. There are other games like Magic the Gathering that has I don't even know how long its rule book is, 5,000 pages or something insane. Obviously, you can't be expected to read that whole rule book, but it is important for you to be able to know how to reference it so that if you do have a rules question, you can find the solution. Poker is fortunately a pretty easy game, but there are some corner cases. Also, it's important to know procedures for when someone messes up. A situation came up in Montreal, actually, where it was on the player under the gun. The guy in second position says, I'm all in, puts his chips in for 13 big blinds. So, a guy under the gun had queens. What do you do with your pocket queens now? Go ahead, type it in. What do you do? Tell me what you do with your pocket queens. And this is where it's important to know the rules. And if you know the rules, and you abide well within them, you are doing nothing unethical, by the way. This guy, I kept needling him, calling him an asshole. But it was just for fun. He did nothing wrong. Can you really take conclusions from red lines on the tournament result? Louis Philippe, you cannot check, you're under the gun. What was the situation? Under the gun has pocket queens. Guy in second position goes all in out of turn. What does under the gun do? Red line. Other line. What's the other line? I don't remember the other line. I haven't played online in so long. Blue line? Is that what it is? You want your graphs to go up. Whatever that means. So we have a few people saying limp, a few people saying go all in, a few people saying raise. Well, it's important to know the rules, right? Because if you don't know the rules, you're going to butcher this situation. You will butcher this situation. So, what do? Well, I actually think this is a bad rule. But currently, the rule says that if the action does not change, then the person's other action must stand, right? So, for some reason, they don't consider limping as in changing the action. I think limping does change the action. I understand that the amount did not go up, but the action has changed in my mind, and I'm actually going to bring that up to people. But, in that scenario, if you limp, now the guy in second position must go all in. But if you raise, the guy in second position can fold. So, what do? Well, you limp. And understanding the rules allows you to play optimally in this scenario when your opponent screwed up. You have to understand, whenever someone else screws up, it is not out of line at all for you to take advantage of that. Because it is their job to know the rules. You're supposed to know, when the guy to your right has cards, they go first. Everyone knows that, right? Lots of people are saying check as well. You cannot check when you are under the gun. That is not a legal action in No Limit Texas Hold'em. You must fold, call, or raise. Pet peeve of mine as well. Whenever you go to the flop, you can't raise on the flop when you're first to act. You can only bet. A bet is the first amount being put into the pot. Now, you may ask, well, why am I raising preflop then if I'm just putting in the first bet? Well, the first bet is the big blind. Right? First bet's the big blind. So, you're raising the bet. If someone bets, you cannot raise. I mean, if someone bets, then you can raise. Alright, what if middle position ships it? Wait, what if middle position 1 ships when it's under the gun's action? This is why the rule is that way. Dave, I'm not sure what you're saying. But I mean, I guess in theory, you're supposed to get punished when you screw up. The problem is that, you know, I haven't really thought through this situation. Everyone keeps saying because the action didn't change. Listen, something changed. What changed? Well, now there's another player in the hand who is live, right? That's the problem. I don't know if there's a better solution. I haven't actually thought it out. But be very careful when you say the action did not change, because something very clearly did change. The guy limped in. That's like saying, say they fold you in the, or say you're in the cutoff. What do you do with your hand? Well, it depends on if people put money in front of you, right? If people limp in front of you, your action should change significantly compared to people who don't limp in front of you. The action has changed, and just because there's not more money at risk does not mean that the situation is all of a sudden exactly the same. Anyway, all I'm saying here is that knowing the rules allows you to play well. And that's it. So, you need to know the rules. If you are serious about poker, you need to understand the rules. Does a check on the flop count as action? Every action is an action, but the issue is the amount of money being bet. So, Davey, this is the interesting thing about angles, right? As the international poker rules are trying to be implemented, it's very, throughout it, is always mentioning that fairness is more important than the technical rules. Now, actually, that was one of my first notes to Marcel, is what defines fairness? And he mentioned a player who's known to be very shady, and said that, you know, if this player does this, a shady player does this play, then we know he's being shady. But if it's the guy's first tournament, then, you know, he's just not being shady, right? So we're not trying to punish people for not understanding the rules. We're trying to be fair. It's very important to be fair. Because imagine you go to a tournament, and it's a guy's first tournament. It's obviously his first tournament. And let's say Satellite's in for $1, and somehow gets in the 25K. On the first break, he gets his chips and puts them in his pocket and goes to the bathroom. Should that player be disqualified? Obviously, the answer is no. That would be the dumbest thing in the world. But, under some rule systems, yes, that player's out of the tournament. Because in his home game, they take their chips, they put them in their pocket, and they go to the bathroom. Obviously, that player should not be disqualified because he doesn't know better. Now, if you have a shady player, obviously he should be disqualified. And that's why it's very important that you have rules that are flexible. Why do we need another set of rules? We need a unifying set of rules. There's not a unified set of rules at the moment. Like I was just saying, you know, sometimes you can back raise whenever it's a min re-raise, sometimes you can't. So, and again, it depends on which rules you're following. There needs to be one clearly defined set of rules that major tournament series abide by. And once they abide by them, then everybody else will abide by them. Can it be a 3 strikes type policy? That's actually not a bad idea to have some sort of tracking system. The problem, though, is that you have to develop a tracking system. That's a bit of a hassle, right? But, you know, if every tournament you play in the world, you have to, like, have a card to register. Kind of like if you go play Magic the Gathering tournament, you have to enter your DCI number. I know my number, like, off the back of my head. I use it, like, every day whenever I was a 12-year-old kid. 596-10118. There it is. It's not a password or anything. You can use it to look up players' rankings and whatnot. So, every tournament is sanctioned by the DCI in Magic the Gathering, and every tournament in poker could be sanctioned by a poker commission, a poker rule set, whatever. And in theory, well, World Series of Poker already does this. If you have penalties against you, first time, no real punishment at all. But if you accumulate penalties throughout the series, they do become very harsh, right? And I think that's good. If you have someone who is known to do shady things, if they do anything the least bit out of line, they can just be banned, right? It's easy. So, I think that's a good idea. But it's going to be difficult to implement long-term, and it's a big, broad thing. Magic the Gathering has it easy because you must go through a company to play Magic the Gathering because you have to get their cards, right? And poker's different because no one really owns poker, which is why all this is so difficult. Anyone can make up their own rules. Anyone can run their own tournaments, and anyone can kind of do whatever they want. What's my favorite thing about poker? I don't know. It's a fun game. What I like about being a professional poker player? Probably the freedom of time it allows. You can kind of do whatever you want within reason. I like the idea of having to... of actually being in control of your destiny to some extent. If you want to work hard and get good at something, you can. And poker really allows the better players to rise to the top, and it makes it very clear somewhat quickly if you are not one of the better players. Have I ever seen people banned from a tournament while playing? I've seen people get in fights at the table, mostly at Borgata, where people have ego problems. And they got banned. Well, they got banned. They got kicked out of the tournament. I don't know if they got banned or not. It's pretty unfair that well-known pros get warnings for abusive things while unknown players get penalties. Yeah, I think that's pretty wrong and very, very bad. And, you know, the 3-strike thing may fix that concept. That said, it's a bizarre thing where people with privilege get away with things which allows them to get more privilege. And I personally think you should just always be in line. And if you're out of line, you should get punished. That's what it amounts to. Another pet peeve of mine, I don't like little coffee cups. You can't put much coffee in a little coffee cup. I like a goblet of coffee. Who have you seen make the biggest angles? I mean, everyone knows Min the Master loves his angles. I don't know. I think it's... Angle shooting only really works against players who you are friendly with or players who are very novice. Angles don't really work well against anyone who knows what's going on, especially if they know that you are an angler, because I'm just going to make sure everything is very, very clear and very defined before I do anything. So, you know, you can't get angled. You understand very quickly. You need to make yourself angle-proof against this type of player. It's hard to differentiate between not knowing the rule versus an angle shooter. And that's the hard thing, and that's why it's up to the tournament player's discretion. Also, perhaps it's up to the players at the table to some extent. Was this player out of line? All these rules are effective with good managers, but at low stakes they're inconsistent. This is actually also something I brought up to Marcel, is that what happens if the tournament director doesn't know what they're doing? Because, you know, they're new. Well, you have to become sanctioned by the International Rules, I guess, Commission. And in theory, you should have someone who has been vetted. When you go play Magic the Gathering tournament, there are judges sanctioned by the DCI, the Duelist Convention International or something like this. And they go through rigorous testing, right? And they do all this for free. They don't get paid anything. They get paid in Magic cards, which, you know, is worth something, but it's not like actually a real salary or anything. And they know the rules. And in theory, if you're a sanctioned poker site, you should know the rules. I mean, the rules are clearly defined. They're there. So, you should know the rules. Do I think swapping action is an angle if it is not disclosed? No. And that's one of those things that's very, very hard to police. If you can't police something, it can't really be a good rule. Online sites deal with this a lot with various programs, right? If they can police it, they can keep it out. If they can't police it, then they can't really keep it out. It definitely is a problem, though, and collusion is a problem, and there are a few ways for sites and players to detect collusion, and in the international rules, it's clearly written, collusion will not be tolerated. So if you're colluding, you can be removed from the tournament. I speak about player collusion when players that own stakes in other players play soft or differently against each other. You feel it unfairly tilts the table play and tournament. I mean, in theory, yes. If, like, imagine you have half of a guy in a tournament. You sure don't want to bust that guy, because if you bust him, you take all the equity and it goes to you, and that's not good. Because you want two people in the tournament, so you can take first and second, right? The question is, do people act shadily? And the answer is probably they must, right? That said, if you want to ban swapping of action, then first off, again, you can't police it. And if you did, the poker economy would die. Is two players checking down against a small stack collusion? That's referred to as implicit collusion, and it is a good strategic decision sometimes. You cannot penalize people for playing well. Obviously. You also can't penalize people for playing poorly. It's a hard thing. I mean, I actually am not to that part in the rules yet. There's 79 rules. Like I said, I'm through 6. It's taking me an hour. But I'm interested to see what they're going to say about that. Well, soft play is collusion. That's another question, right? Think about this. Say I'm at a table. It's me, one other pro, and 8 recreational players. It is definitely in my and the other pros' best interest to not do anything against each other, right? We're not going to have an edge against each other. We don't want to play big pots against each other. And so we should just be generally passive against each other. And is that unethical? Well, is it soft play? No, it's not soft play. It's just smart. It will appear as soft play because I just don't want to play big pots with that guy. I want to play with the weak players. But it's an interesting spot. You can penalize people for saying, hey, let's check it down. How do they say it, though? See, that's the other question. What if they say, check, and they wrap the table like, yeah, obviously. If they say, hey, let's check it down, is that any different than check, you know? I don't know. I don't think, I mean, I think it's the same thing, but you're obviously not going to penalize someone for the way they say the word check, right? Again, this is where it's up to the tournament director to figure out what is fine and what is not fine, and it's hard to train people to have good judgments. But I think that seems to be essentially what they're trying to do, is they're trying to have people, they're trying to put tournament directors in charge who have good judgments. And to be fair, again, people should check it down. If they should check it down, if that is good strategic poker, obviously you cannot penalize someone for good strategic poker. What are some ways that you suggest staying disciplined at the table? Understand that anytime you're not disciplined, anytime you play poorly, discipline essentially to me means playing well all the time. If you're playing poorly, then you're giving your money away. Now, why do you want to give your money away? Some people don't mind giving their money away. They're plenty rich. I'm not plenty rich yet. Maybe we'll get there one day. But anytime you're doing anything that's bad, you're giving your money away. Anytime you're not studying, not getting better at poker, you're giving your money away. Now, you may value other things more than studying, but anytime you play poorly, whether it be because of discipline, maybe because you don't know the spot, you don't understand, you haven't studied enough, anytime any of that has happened, then you're giving your money away. So don't give your money away. The other guy is not forced to check. Obviously, Daniel, the other guy is not forced to check. If you tell me, hey, let's check it down, doesn't mean I have to check it down. I can still bet. I can check it down to the river and then bet. I can do whatever I want, right? Obviously, your flop words are not binding. Like if you say, I'm going to go all in on the river if you check to me 3 times. It's not binding. How do I gather hand histories from people I coach live? Go to jonathanlittlepoker.com/notes. Michael typed in an essay asking me a question on Facebook. I'm not going to answer your rules question. Go and ask Matt Savage. Matt Savage is a good tournament director. He will give you a reasonable, good, fair ruling. I am definitely not a pro when it comes to the rules. I do my best to understand the rules, and I bet I give you the right answer 99% of the time. But hey, 1% of the time, I'll get it wrong. And I don't feel like reading an essay because we're doing a show right now. It's usually best to just type in 1 or 2 sentences, not an essay. Essays are not good. Can we talk about any hands that I played yesterday since we're running out of time? I had a few hands where essentially I had marginal bluff catchers. One hand against Francois. I'm sure I'm butchering his name. Maybe his name is Pascal. I'm sorry, I don't know people's names very well. He raised cutoff, I think. My hand histories are on my phone. We're using the phone to stream on Instagram, so sorry about that. How do you write down your hand histories? Go to jonathanlittlepoker.com/notes. I explain it. As clear as I can explain it. There's a video there. Anyway, I think he raised and I 3-bet king, queen offsuit. That sounds right. He raised cutoff, I 3-bet king, queen offsuit on the button. He called. Flop comes ace, ace, 5, 2 diamonds. He checked. I bet tiny, like a third pot, 25% pot. I think 25% pot. He called. Turn was a king, so I have king, queen. He checked. I bet tiny again, about 25% pot. He now raises huge. He raises huge. So obviously I could have just checked here, but I thought there was plenty of value to be had from underpairs. Also, flush draws. And also I really didn't want to get bombed on the river. Because if it goes check, check on the turn and he pots it on the river, it's pretty rough. I was going to check behind on the river, by the way. He now raises big on the turn. What should his raising range be here? I should have a huge range advantage, right? On ace, ace, 5, king. Obviously, I have all kings. I have all ace kings. I have lots of aces, etc. So, whenever I have a huge range advantage, why should he be raising? Well, he either has the nuts. What are the nuts here? I don't know. I guess he could have ace king, but does he really want to raise ace king? If he has ace king, then like I can't continue, because he has all the cards. Pascal left Francois. There you go. It's a spot where I'm sure he's just good and balanced and probably better than me. But in that scenario, he really shouldn't be raising a lot. So, if he shouldn't be raising a lot, it really tilts him towards draws. Because there are a lot of draws available. He could have all the flush draws. He could have queen jack. He could have jack 10. He could just have hands that are deciding to get after it. That said, maybe he just... I don't know his thought process at all. I've never talked poker with him. Never heard him talk poker. So maybe he is just trying to exploit the fact that he thinks my small bet size is a marginal made hand. He's decided, you know what, I have my draw. I'm going to try to push him off his marginal made hand. Maybe he just has ace jack and thinks it's the nuts. I don't think that. I mean, I think he's a good player, so he's probably not just ramming and jamming it with ace jack. I don't know why he would raise with any ace, really. If he's raising an ace, what is my continuing range, right? My continuing range is all the good aces, which crush all of his aces. So, Eddie says, Pascal is the nittiest player for Montreal. Anyway, I decided to call. Because at the end of the day, I kind of convinced myself he just should not raise here. So I decided to call. Also, I block ace king, I block pocket king, so we really can only have pocket 5s. And should he really even raise 5s? I mean, I guess he should. It's like, yeah, that's it. So anyway, I called. River was a blank. I think it was like a 3. Offsuit 3. And he checked, and I checked behind. Happily. Wait, did it? Or did he bet the river? No, I think it went check, check. It went check, check on the river. And I won. So that was good. There's another hand I played against Dominic Niche. I'm trying to remember how this hand went down. I want to say I raised cutoff with pocket 8s, and he 3-bet. We're playing very deep, like 100 big blinds deep or more. I raised, he 3-bet. He 3-bets a lot. I decided to call. Flop came 10-3-3. Is that right? 10-3-3. He checks, I bet. He calls. No, he checks, I bet. Oh my god. I check, he bets, I call, obviously. He bet tiny on the flop. Turn was a 5 or some, or 7. It was a 7. 10, 3, 3, 7. I checked, now he pots it. He overpots it. So on the flop, he bet 25K into like 40 or 50. He bet 25K into 60. That's what it was. 25K into 60. On the turn, he bet 125, so he slightly overpotted it. It's a pretty dicey spot because we have a bluff catcher. I decided to call. I'm trying to remember how this pot got so big. River was a blank, I guess. I checked and he bet again, like 275K. I think I have this hand wrong. I remember the river bet was 275K. I'm like, oh, that's a lot. Oh, no, that's a different hand. I'm sorry. Look, this is the problem. I'm so bad. This is why I write down my hands. JonathanLittlePoker.com/notes. This was a different hand. And this spot, he bet 125. I called. River was a queen. It went check, check, and I just won. What did Pascal show? He had 8-7 of diamonds for the flush draw. Surprised he didn't bluff the river. I mean, if you're going to check raise turn, maybe he thought I'm only continuing on the turn with an ace or better, in which case, obviously, you don't bet the river. But that worked out. So these are two hero calls. Another one, I had kings. This was a good one. Against Luke Greenwood, who I'm friendly with. I raised middle position. He called on the button. It came 10-8-6. I decided to check. This is a spot where in the past I would just bet every time, but, you know, we're trying to check sometimes now. I see all the good kids checking. It's important to make sure your checking range out of position is very strong to the point they can easily call down some portion of the time. So I called. I checked the flop. He bet 40K into like a 120K pot. And I almost raised right there. I think this is probably just a check raise. We were playing pretty deep stacked. I think we were playing 600 or 700K deep, so we were pretty deep. See, again, this is just where I have not studied enough. So, I checked 10-8-6. He bet 40K. I called. Turn was a low card, like a 2. I checked. He bet 125K. I called. River was a jack. I checked, and he bet 275K. And so the board is 10-8-6 to jack. And like 275K is a lot. It's a third of or 27% of a starting stack. Anyway, obviously I called. You're not checking the kings looking to check fold. I'm against someone who's good. He's aggressive. My hand looks relatively weak, or at least like a marginal made hand. Like, because at this point he could just be value betting ace 10 if he has it, or he could be value betting a jack if he somehow had a jack. So I called, and he had queen jack suited. So that was good. Let's see. There's apparently some hater in Instagram. Hello, hater. Let's ban haters. Where did he end up finishing in Instagram? I'm very quick to ban people. Report. Abusive. We don't like abuse. Abuse is not good. I don't like this comment. Done. Bye. Be nice. Actually, I don't know if I banned you or not. Be nice. It's important to be nice. Trolls suck. Trolls do suck. I don't really we discussed this earlier. Like, if you are sitting on the internet spreading hatred, why are you doing this in your life? You need to really you need to look at your life, and you need to figure out what you're doing. Because if you're just being negative, you're not benefiting anyone. You're wasting your life. That's really the problem. Don't waste your life. You only have so much time. If you don't like me, if you don't like anyone, realize you do not have to take in their content, right? You don't have to, Oh, good, we didn't ban him. How do I ban on this thing? I think I did it. Okay. Anyway, maybe I didn't do it. I don't know. I don't know how to work Instagram. Instagram's tough. Anyway, don't be negative. You know, negativity is fine whenever it's justified. There are certainly times when it is justified. Like, you know, the full tilt debacle, where they ran off with a bunch of money. Presumably. We don't even know. That's the thing that nobody told us. Negativity is probably justified then, but if you just don't like someone's attitude, someone's demeanor, the way they look, the way they act, the way they talk, the material they put out, realize that everyone's material is not for you. And that's A-okay. Doesn't mean you have to be hateful towards it. It just means you should ignore it. Or you don't look at it, right? If you don't like Jonathan Little, don't follow Jonathan Little. If you don't like anyone, don't follow them. I actually don't follow a lot of people on Twitter. Because at the end of the day, I'm busy. I don't have time for all of that. Right? So, be careful of that. I spent a lot of years of my life just being generally negative, generally unhappy, and it was a waste of my life. I wasted a few years just being negative, and I would hate for anyone else to do that. I have a blog post on this if you're disgruntled. If you're someone who goes to websites and posts negative things, go to jonathanlittlepoker.com/disgruntled. I wrote this for a few people who were being overly negative a while back, and I'm sure they didn't read it. The thing is that whenever people are overly negative, they're not really trying to improve. They're just they're angry about something, right? I don't know what it is. They probably don't even know what it is. And it's unfortunate because they're stuck in a rut that they may or may not get out of. You wonder what trolls did pre-internet. Yeah, I have no clue. D. Nelson said, you cut some of the negative people out of your life because they were draining you. Yeah, you don't need to put up with that. If you feel like being nice, let them know, hey, you're really negative, and I can't have that in my life right now. I mentioned it once before, difference between negativity and holding someone accountable. Now, accountability is important. If, for example, you're a steward of someone's money and you act irresponsibly with it, you should be very much held accountable, and if you do something wrong, you should be punished. For example, if you give money to someone to start a business and they go off and have a party with your money, well, then you're allowed to sue them and you're allowed to hold them accountable and you're allowed to negatively publicize the fact that they did that thing, right? If you give your money to a poker site and they run off with your money, you're allowed to be very angry at that poker site. But if Jonathan Little posts an image trying to help people that you do not like, it's probably not a reason to troll the guy. Or if just someone says something offensive to you, maybe just it's not a big deal. I don't know. I'm pretty loose when it comes to most things, because I realize most people are just trying to make their way through life. They're trying to do what they think is right. No one's trying to, well, I say no one. Most people are not trying to be bad actors, right? They're trying to be good. So realize they're trying to be good. Maybe they're doing it in the wrong way. Most people are trying to be good. But if some people are out of line, people who are aggressively out of line, aggressively trolly, aggressively negative, people who are thieves, you should get punished. And, I've not always been a good person in the past, and I have been punished, and I deserved it, and I realize this. And whenever people do get punished, they often learn. And, some people don't learn. Some people do learn. I was just listening to a podcast with Justin Bonomo about how, essentially, he got caught for multi-accounting a long time ago, and he realized this was wrong, and he stopped. A long time ago, I let people play on my full tilt account. I realized that was bad. I got punished, and I stopped, right? And it's interesting. Same thing that Justin essentially said in the podcast is that you are always presented with things that you could do that are unethical that will make you money. It happens all the time. And I, in my brain, always say, oh, no, don't do that. You remember last time. And, it's just not good, right? It changes your morals and changes your ethics and changes your perception of the world whenever you get punished. And whenever you see other people get punished. So all of that, right? And when you make mistakes, you have to understand that often you make the mistake because you don't really know what you're doing, right? Whenever I was young, I was really dumb. Like dumb. I've somehow gotten a little bit smarter, and that's very fortunate. I'm very happy about that. Some people grow up, some people don't. And I'm always trying to do my best to grow up. Kevin says, not enough money to buy your integrity. That's the interesting thing about integrity, right? Like, what is right and what is wrong? It's a tough thing. It's like saying whenever you're driving your car, if you're driving 1 mile an hour over the speed limit, you are breaking the law, right? Is that bad? Most people drive way faster than 1 mile an hour over the speed limit. But it's wrong. They're breaking the law. Is it okay? Is it okay because everyone is doing it? And the answer is no. It's not okay because everyone's doing it. But is it okay with you? Like, I know back whenever Justin was multi-accounting, everyone was multi-accounting. I say everyone, not everyone. Many people were multi-accounting. And it was just like normal, right? That's just what people did. But he happened to win a big tournament and got punished because of it. There's another guy at the same time who was multi-accounting, got caught, got punished for it, then just opened up a bunch more accounts, right? So one person quit and didn't do it anymore. Another person kept doing it. And I think if you get caught, you get punished. Even if you don't get caught and you stop doing something, you've essentially improved yourself, right? And you progress, right? You level up to some extent. And sometimes it does take punishment to level up. Obviously, it's better if you learn from rewards, but sometimes it takes the stick. And I've been beaten a time or two, and it makes you better. Probably shouldn't be beating people, but I've metaphorically been beaten plenty of times, and it has made me better. Let's see. What was a turning point to make me go from a dumb kid to a smart kid? It's tough to say. I really don't know. I think it just happened. I started reading a lot. I actually think listening to podcasts has been very beneficial. I started listening to podcasts a lot, like 6 or 7 or 8 years ago. And I don't know, I probably listen on average 2 hours of a podcast a day of just basically interviews of smart people talking to other smart people, or people teaching things like how to reach people, right? I started this show, A Little Coffee, because of a podcast. I started JonathanLowPoker.com because of a podcast. And everything I have today is because of things I have learned from other people. Because I was just another poker grinder, angrily grinding out a win rate, right? And I guess what it amounts to is my vision got expanded, right? I started learning from other people who were way more successful than me. Just because you're good at poker does not mean you're good at life. Make sure you understand that. And I try to learn from other people's experiences. And a lot of people have had a lot of experiences. If I can learn from those, then I'm more than happy to. So study a lot, learn a lot, be open-minded. Realize you don't know everything. Realize that your upbringing may lead you to make horrendous mistakes, or it may lead you to make no mistakes. And ethics are a tough thing, because some people view some things as wrong, other people do not view other things as wrong. I mean, the speeding example is a very good one. If everyone's speeding, but the police pulls you over, how do you feel when you get pulled over? Everyone's going 1 mile an hour above the speed limit. Police decides, you know what? I got to write a ticket. I'm going to write this guy a ticket. How do you feel? Do you feel wronged because you got picked? Do you feel as if, yes, I deserve this, I got caught? Do you feel it as, what is your feeling in your mind? Obviously, the first feeling is like, oh, crap, this happened. But someone says just getting older. Getting older, maybe that's it. Trying to surround myself with smart people. Getting mentors who are great at life, who are way better than I am, who I'm probably never going to be anywhere near as good as they are at life. And surrounding yourself with smart people. Law of man is different than morality. And morality is fluid, you know? That's really the interesting thing about morality. Sometimes people justify killing people, and sometimes they don't at all. And it's a bizarre thing. My top podcast, I have a blog post about this. It's a little bit old. I'm sure you can go to Google Jonathan Little Poker Top Podcast or something like that. Do you feel what you did was wrong? Yeah, absolutely. I certainly do now. I didn't back then. And I've grown up. I got punished. I learned. And I have done nothing out of line since. And I don't plan on doing anything out of line because it's not worth it. It's way easier to sleep whenever you have done nothing wrong. And, happiness, security, just knowing you are being a good person and benefiting the world is what I found way more valuable than really any amount of money to some extent. People always say any amount of money. It's a tough question. If you were to dump $20 billion on me, what do you do? Never been presented that spot. I would hope that I would be a good person, but hell, who knows? All right, that's going to be it for today. I have 26 seconds. Got to wrap it up. Have a good day. We'll probably do this tomorrow. Maybe we won't. Be good to someone. Be nice. Realize we're all trying to do the best we can in this world. And always strive to improve. I'll talk to you later.